Stargirl, episode 10. Welcome to DC Week, because we got DC Fandome dropping, as well as some new shows. Batwoman is back, Legends of Tomorrow is back, but we will kick things off this particular week. It's your boy Icon, and we're starting off with Stargirl. So, in the last episode, the episode ended with Eclipso dividing and conquering the family, where he has Pat and Courtney, Mike and Barbara. Everybody's like arguing, and Courtney's all like, "Oh, how come you didn't tell us that you guys killed an innocent man?" And Pat was just like, it was complicated. And then she was like, "Well, it was complicated." And they're all like fighting and arguing. And then while they're fighting, see, now this particular episode, because this is episode 10, and it's still summer school because they don't give these things titles. We could have named this episode anything, because in the beginning of the episode, it started with Starman and Pat having a conversation about after they killed the guy that was the body host of Eclipso, how Starman basically felt remorse and he apologized to Pat and he was like, "I don't want our family to be ruined like the JSA was ruined." So it could have been called broken, and then like Courtney was mad at Pat the whole time and she was like, "Oh, like this family is broken," whatever. So I was thinking about calling the episode Broken Family, or like Broken Trust, or this, that, and the third. But then but based on how the episode turned out, we're calling this one Stargirl, ladies and gentlemen, episode 10, The Shade. I'm saying it right now because, usually when I get to the season finale, I always ask the question, who's your favorite character of the season? For me, it's The Shade. And while the family was arguing in the living room, this dude, he fell out of the sky, out of a dark cloud, crashed into the kitchen table. And, they got him up, they were talking to him, and then he was just like, "Oh, I've come to help you, silly child." And then she was like, "Help with what?" He's like, "I'll tell you how to defeat Eclipso." And then, Pat was just like, "Oh, you can't trust this guy." But because Courtney's mad at Pat, she's just like, "Shut up, Pat, we're gonna listen to The Shade." And then, The Shade tells him, he was like, "All you have to do is just reform the crystal back together, and his body will be dragged back into it." And then they're just like, "Oh, but how do we bring the crystal back together?" He was like, "Silly child." He's like, you put the darkness back together with light, so, and then, then after that, so they're just like, "Okay, so we got to use the staff to try to power the crystal and put the crystal back together." Pat wasn't feeling the idea, but in the moment, he knew that Courtney wasn't going to listen to him, so they just let it rock. The Shade, for some reason, passed out on the couch, and he was just sleeping on the couch like nothing ever happened, and they ain't go through all this drama that they went through. So now they come up with a plan. Courtney ends up calling Beth because, Yolanda didn't quit the team and, Rick's in jail. So Beth, she ended up calling Beth. Beth put her parents in check because her parents were just like, "Oh, tell us what's going on, honey." And she was like, "No." She said, "When you guys were going through your divorce, you didn't bother to tell me." So she was just like, "Yeah, I'm not." She's like, "So because you weren't comfortable to talk to me about the divorce thing, I'm not comfortable talking to you about why I'm wearing these goggles." And then she was just like, "You guys told me my entire life that I need to make friends. And that's what I did. I made a bunch of friends, and they actually need me. You two don't need me because you were too busy worried about your careers and actually worrying about your child." So Beth, she walked out. And the crazy thing is, and here's where I give Beth respect, she wasn't even angry. She was just like spitting legit facts, it was just legit facts. And then that's like, you can't argue that. So she dipped, and then she went to Courtney's house because Mike's whole thing was because Pat came up with an idea because Courtney tried to use the staff to forge the crystal back together, and it didn't work because the staff is weak and doesn't have enough juice. Pat comes up with the idea because he was reading some newspaper reports and watching some TV footage about green fires that have been lit in the city where the JSA's headquarters used to reside. So then he puts two and two together, and he's just like, "You know what, since the staff doesn't have enough power to bring the crystal back together, let's go get some power." So him and Courtney jump in the car, and they go down, they go down to the next town, where the JSA headquarters was, because Pat knows that's where Green Lantern Girl is hiding. Mike's whole thing was, he was just like, "Well, if Pat's going and Courtney's going, who's supposed to protect?" He was like, "Who's supposed to protect me and Barbara from the Shade?" And then that's when Beth showed up. Beth opened the door, and then Mike was like, "Nah." Mike was like, "Nah." And then actually Mike left the house because he wasn't feeling Beth, trying to protect him from the Shade. So, Courtney and Pat, they go down to the town. While they're driving down to the town, Courtney's like, "I can't believe you lied to me." And, Pat just like, "I'm sorry." And she was like, "You ruined everything." They go through that whole ordeal. Mike, however, he heard a news report about like pink lightning, and because he used to be the person in charge of the Thunderbolt pin, he knew exactly what that was all about. Now, they didn't show the black kid, which I thought was interesting. They didn't show him, but Mike drove to the neighborhood where the pink lightning was, and when he drove to the neighborhood, he saw that there was like a garbage can that got turned into a cupcake, you know, like a tree got turned into like, you know, like a candy cane. And then he got to the end of the block and the boy turned his house into a freaking gingerbread house. And I was just like, because at first, see, when I saw the first couple of candy objects, when I saw like the candy cane and I saw like the mushroom, like the marshmallows and all that other stuff, to me, I was just like, okay, they can still spin this one. They can just say that an airplane was flying overhead, you know, transporting some like giant candy they were going to use for a theme park, and it fell out of the plane and landed on the. You cannot come up with an excuse for that house. When I saw the house, I was like, damn. But this is interesting because Mike and the kid are going to have, hopefully, are going to have a conversation next week where they'll talk to him, because that kid seems like he's the key at this point to stopping Eclipso. And I like the fact that if the kid is the key to stopping Eclipso, I like that Mike and the kid together are going to help figure that out. Rick, he's in prison. Grundy brought him some food. I thought Grundy would have broke him out of prison, but instead he just brought him some food, so that was pretty funny. Still no Yolanda. She's MIA. And Barbara, while Barbara was at the house, you know, tending to the Shade, I guess the Shade got a little delirious because he's losing his power, like he's weak and I guess he's dying. And he, you know, while she, you know, she was trying to comfort him or she asked him a question, he just got delirious. And then he started talking to her as though like he was like that was his sister. He was just like, you know, I'm sorry, you know, when father died, he was like, I abandoned you and I should have been there for you. He's like, I had all this power and I did nothing with it to save you. So I guess he had something, I guess like, well, no, he said something about like her growing old and he just wasn't there. So he basically feels guilty regarding like leaving his sister behind after he acquired the power of the Shade. So Barbara heard the whole thing. Barbara didn't even try to like stop him from talking or snap him out of it. She was just ear hustling into, you know, it's the whole thing. So Barbara knows his entire backstory now. And if that was they haven't revealed this yet, but if that was his sister, I'm still under the impression that the little girl who died was his niece. That was his sister's daughter. And Eclipso killed his niece, which is why he's trying to, you know, which is why he wants to go after Eclipso, which is why he wants revenge. They just haven't revealed that yet. But I said, I still feel like that's his niece. So, you know, so now, like I said, so he's just in the kitchen, like being delirious. Beth, you know, she ends up talking to Dr. Mid-Nite again. The two of them have conversation. And Dr. Mid-Nite basically pulls up every single thing that he has on the Shade to try to like, you know, clue Beth into everything that's going on. Courtney and Pat, they go down to the Child Youth Center, or like, you know, the what do they used to call those things? Like, I was about to say the nursery. Them things where a kid, orphanage. Like, yeah, like they go down to the orphanage because remember, like Green Lantern girl, I don't know why I can't remember this girl's name. She's looking for her brother. She's still looking for her brother. So she tracked her brother down to an orphanage. She went and stayed at the orphanage overnight, but her brother was gone. Pat and Courtney showed up. They got let in upstairs and they went to go talk to her. You know, she saw them. Pat and Courtney had a conversation with her. They, you know, they told her about everything that's going on with Eclipso. She told them about everything that's going on with her brother. And then she apologized for abandoning them because she was like, had I stayed, this wouldn't have happened. And then they were like, no, like you can still help. We just need you to help put the crystal back together, help us stop Eclipso, then we'll help you find your brother. You know, so, and then after the three of them left, like, you know, she left, they went to JSA headquarters because the girl was staying at JSA headquarters, which I thought was funny because her dad was a member. And, you know, after the three of them left to go back to JSA headquarters, the woman who was in charge of the orphanage got on the phone and she was just like, oh, do you know that the boy has a sister? And I was just like, so does the boy have power? Like, I didn't understand why the boy was so special. Maybe we'll find that out later on down the line. You know, but that's a conversation for a different day. So they go back to JSA headquarters. You know, she uses the power of the Green Lantern, of the ring. She uses the Green Lantern ring to power the crystal. Courtney used the staff to power the crystal. And while they were powering the crystal, Beth was reading the information that Dr. Mid-Nite had sent her about Eclipso. And then she got to a specific part where she ran to Barbara and she told Barbara, she was like, yo, you got to call Pat and them right now and tell them not to forge that crystal back together. Because they even told the Shade backstory, which is why this episode is called The Shade. They told the Shade's backstory where I guess I forgot. They said he was searching for the power or he was searching for the crystal or something. Something happened and he tried to do something with the crystal, and whatever he tried to do, it backfired. And then he ended up getting the power of darkness instead of the power of light. But, you know, he's like, basically his power is tied to the crystal as well. it's not just Eclipso whose power, you know, is tied to the crystal. The Shade's power comes from the crystal. They said that he was infused with the darkest parts of the crystal, like the dark energy. And because the crystal, because his body is linked to the crystal, and the crystal was destroyed, he's dying as well. Beth's whole thing was, don't put the crystal back together, because once you put the crystal back together, it'll give the Shade his power back. And she said not only will it revitalize the Shade and give the Shade his power back, it'll also summon Eclipso. So then when you know, so of course it was too late. They put the crystal back together, and as soon as they put the crystal back together, it wasn't like the Shade's powers came back immediately, and he was just like, oh, Barbara, I'm sorry that I lied to you, but the Shade is back, baby. And then, you know, in JSA headquarters, Eclipso showed up, and then he was just like, oh, you know, the crystal's back together, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, like Green Lantern Girl, why can't I remember her name? Green Lantern Girl, you know, like she attacked, you know, Eclipso. She got blasted up against the wall. You know, Pat got blasted up against, well, he got blasted, but he didn't get knocked out like she did. And then Courtney tried to fight him. And then Eclipso basically used his eclipse powers. He sucked her into the black hole, just like he did Cindy and everybody else. I did see the coming attractions for next week's episode. So apparently there, like I said before, like the Shadow Realm, the Dark, I guess Dr. McNider's in a different Shadow Realm because he's just walking around like the abyss, like, you know, not knowing what to do. And there's like a whole town and a whole community that Eclipso had sucked in, and they're just living within like the Shadow Realm. So Courtney's in the Shadow Realm. Well, she doesn't have the staff because the staff got left behind. I don't know how they're going to get her out of the Shadow Realm, but like I said, this is where the black kid comes in at, because we're going to need that pink pen. And that's how the episode ended. So thank you for tuning in. This was good. You know, like the show's winding down because this is episode 10. So we only got 3 more to go. 3, maybe 4 more episodes to go. But yeah, I'm interested. Like I want to see like Thunderbolt come back into play. You know, like I want to see what happens with the others, because again, like Yolanda and Rick, like they're not even on the team. Like the only person who survived was Beth, which is crazy. But like I said, like, you know, I definitely want to see where this goes. Like I really don't have too much of a prediction, but it's just a lot of intrigue. And you know, when the next episode comes, we will talk about it. So hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Facebook, check out my YouTube channel, because I got, you know, the ONG podcast is back with Sean, Justin, and Gotham Geek Girl Nadia. We are going over DC fandom. We're covering all the DC fandom goodness, so you guys can check it out. Definitely hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Instagram, check out my Comic-Con video, because I got a video up for the Comic-Con, because Comic-Con is back, baby, and we doing it up real big. And more stuff in the woodwork, because like I said, Legends is back, and we got Batwoman. We also got Titans, we got Doom Patrol, we're still doing Supergirl, which is about to end soon, and then we got that Young Justice, because Young Justice is back, baby! So thanks for tuning in. Until next time, for some DC action for the Shade. Take care, and I'm out this...